Thanks for tuning in. Just wanted to take a second to let y'all know I am now an Amazon affiliate. So any shopping you plan on doing through Amazon, visit strangerencounterspodcast.com and go through the affiliate link. If you prefer, you can donate at Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Thomas D. Salmons and you can donate. Help keep the show up and running. Thanks.
Welcome to Stranger Encounters. I am Tommy Salmons. Today's guest is Drake Powell from Praxis. I asked Drake to join me to discuss Praxis, give everybody kind of a crash course introduction into what Praxis is and what it has to offer those looking to enhance their future and build a new career. I hope you enjoy. There it goes. All right. I am here with Drake Powell from Praxis, which is an interview I've been so looking forward to because I think Praxis is doing some really cool things. How you doing, Drake?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Tommy. I've also been looking forward to this as well. I love any chance I can get to talk about Praxis and educate people and inform people who might benefit from it. So I'm excited to be here.
I first heard about Praxis on the Tom Woods show, and he couldn't say enough good things about the way Praxis is operating. And I happened to interview Rebecca Zinus. Do you know her?
Yeah. She's one of our alumni.
She is. And I did not know that going into the interview. And if you go back and you listen to the interview I did with her, I was extremely excited that she was one of your alumni, because I was like, oh my God, I want to get a hold of these guys so bad, and it only took me 5 months.
So you didn't know she was part of Praxis initially. What was the initial talking point of your guys' podcast episode?
Well, the fact that, so I met her, she is in a group called Successful Dropout, which is another podcast run by Kylan Genger and Sam Watt. And I've been in touch with Kylan for years, and I met Rebecca through there, and she was talking about her story in the chat. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, you just dropped out of college and started traveling the world. Like, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So I just started chatting with her, and I was like, I want to do a podcast with you. I want to talk about like freelancing, and I want to talk to you about making that leap, like leaving the typical college environment to travel the world and working in so many different places under so many different circumstances. And so we started chatting, and I guess it was probably about halfway through the interview, she had said that she had gone to Praxis, and I was like, what? You got to be kidding me.
Yeah. She is pretty badass. She's done a lot of really cool things. I haven't had the chance to meet her or talk to her in person yet. But just working for Praxis, I've inherently heard all of the stories of a lot of our alumni, and obviously our participants as well. And yeah, Rebecca's great.
Yeah, she's so nice. And she's just such a sweet woman, and just so full of enthusiasm in life. And I was like, when I started this podcast, it was kind of like, what did I wish I knew when I was coming out into the world? And having kids that are teenagers and in their 20s and getting out there on their own and doing their own things, I was like, I want them to have information I never had. And I really felt like that her story would be extremely inspiring to my daughter, of all people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing too, is I feel like a lot of people share that similar feeling where they're desiring to have these points of knowledge about the real world that are just never taught in public schooling. And it blows my mind that it's not, because it's all super valuable. It's in my opinion more valuable than what you do walk away from in high school.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and my daughter, like always, ever since she was young, she's like me. My mom always said I had like, I had like kind of the gypsy mentality where I just wanted to go and do, and truck driving has been, pretty good for that. It's not great for a family, but I have gotten to see a lot of the world, and I write as a hobby. I started podcasting. My wife and I are actually editing one of my a book of my short stories, and it'll be released later this year. I've just never like been able to conform completely to what I was told I was supposed to do, and I give a lot of that. A lot of that is due to my mom not conforming, and her story is pretty remarkable. And I'm planning on having her on at some point to talk about that, because she has a pretty remarkable story. But she never graduated high school. She didn't even get a GED, and now she's making six figures a year. So it's one of those things where she's one of those success stories that it's just hard work and determination, and just being a no nonsense redhead from Louisiana. From Southern Louisiana. She's just really put herself out there. She listens to my podcast, so she's probably cracking up right now because my mom knows I love her. She's awesome. So,
yeah. I think that I think nonconformity can be super valuable. I think it can also be kind of detrimental, but I think it just depends on the motive that inspires it. If you're itching to go out and do something else, and conforming isn't going to satisfy that, then I think that's when people go far. Non-conforming just because you don't really want to do anything is a totally different story. But I honestly think that's a very small minority of people who have that kind of belief system.
Yeah, absolutely. And that gets me back to Praxis, because what you do at Praxis is not traditional. The best way I've kind of described it to people, like whenever I've brought up Praxis, it's kind of like a trade school for the technological revolution is basically what it is. That's the best way I've ever been able to describe it. So let's get into that, and let's describe, like, tell the audience exactly what Praxis is.
Yeah, so I would actually say that it's probably less. I wouldn't use the term trade school, and the reason for that is because we don't actually teach any specific trades. I would put us under the category of career launch. It's still a college alternative, and it consists of a 6-month entrepreneurial professional boot camp and a 6-month paid apprenticeship at a startup. So in that first 6 months during the boot camp, it's kind of as a whole less of a program and more of a lifestyle. And I know a lot of people say that about several different things, but it could not be more true for Praxis. Because in the initial 6 months, you will be covering, skills workshops and weekly discussions, and you'll be developing all these hard skills and everything like that. But you're also applying this entrepreneurial, break the mold kind of, headspace to everything that you do, whether it's your professional career or your personal life. Elon Musk kind of talks about this a lot, first principles reasoning, and that is essentially what the entire program runs on. Just figuring out for yourself where you want to go, what direction you want to head, and learning how to navigate that career landscape and give yourself an edge without having to feel stuck or lost. Like so many people do, they feel stuck in a job that they don't want to do. So Praxis essentially develops those hard skills, develops those soft skills. And then, while you're completing the actual curriculum of the boot camp, you'll also be setting your own goals, and we will serve almost as a personal trainer for your professional life and help you structure those goals and achieve them effectively.
So do y'all get into, I know one of the guys that popped on the scene here in the last couple of years is Jordan Peterson. And one of the things he talks about that he does is he has a self-authoring program. Do y'all get into that type of a psychology, I guess would be the best way to describe it?
I would say it's pretty similar. Yeah. We're definitely big about, taking your own path and discovering that for yourself. I would say we have a pretty healthy balance between break the mold, blaze your own trail. And, if you want a specific goal out of life, you're going to have to give as much as you take. So it's kind of a collaborative, but also individualistic approach, if that makes sense. You're blazing your own trail, but you have to kind of understand that you might have to hop over here and do something that you might not love and might not be passionate about it in the moment, but if you know that this is going to further you towards your goals, then it's worth it in that sense. And if that is something that you want to pursue and something you want to achieve, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do that. So I would say it's pretty similar, but it also kind of just has a mixture of that ideology and also a collaborative sense to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes absolute sense. You're trying to help people identify and script their lives for themselves. And this is something that John Taylor Gatto spoke of a lot, was that that many of the youth, he taught in Harlem, and he realized that the impoverished youth were not taught to script their own lives, that they were taught to follow a preconceived blueprint, and he was against that. And I think giving people of all walks of life the opportunity to say, hey, you are a creative person and your creativity is good, and let's use that creativity to your benefit to decide what you want to do with your life and how to go forward. I think that's a really remarkable thing. And having to, and structuring a business model around moving people in the direction of creativity and their own ambition is awesome. I've always been overly ambitious and underly funded. So seeing that there's an outlet for the youth coming out today. I mean, I have 5 kids. I can only imagine how they feel about what they see in today's society. And even though they don't know anything before that, but I can imagine how frustrating it is to know that I want to do so much, but there's, even less opportunity nowadays than there was when I was a kid, at least seemingly, at least in the public narrative, in the mainstream thought process. And you're offering them a way to really structure that. And I think that's really cool. So I told you when I emailed you, one of the main things I wanted to do is make this an introductory for the youth, for high schoolers and kids that are looking for alternatives to college, which is basically what y'all are. So can we get into the history a little bit? Who came up with the idea for Praxis, and how did it develop over the years?
Yeah, so Praxis is about 5 years old. So it started around 2013. That's a rough estimate. I'm pretty positive it was 2013, and it was started by our CEO and founder, Isaac Morehouse. It wasn't started as this intention to disrupt the education scene or because he hated college or anything like that. He just noticed that there were a fairly significant amount of young people that were eager for these kinds of opportunities to kind of bypass the path that they were already on and go and do something real quicker, and kind of take agency over their own lives instead of sitting around and waiting for someone to tell them, all right, now you can do this, now you can go over there and do that. He noticed that, and that's why he started Praxis. That was the reasoning behind the entire idea. And so he started just kind of getting things together early on. There were only a couple participants back in that day. And then over the past 5 years, we've grown a lot. There's been a lot of changes as startups usually go through. But at this point, we're pretty stable now, and we've got a good setup going and a good flow going. And obviously there's going to be more changes to come. But yeah, it kind of started initially, it was this really intense program in the very beginning. The boot camp required like 40 hours a week. It was insane. But the people that were going through it were getting intense, like a lot of value out of it. They were opting out of college and going and taking this path instead. And there are some really big success stories that came from that era. So we definitely wouldn't be where we are today without that initial rough patch of trying to get things sorted out and smooth it out. Now we're kind of expanding to a broader audience. So we understand that 40 hours a week for the boot camp is not realistic. Mm-hmm. So it's set up now to kind of supplement the participant's life and have them kind of go through it and still be able to hold a full-time job and take in all the content and have that sense of community. But just not under the understanding or the assumption that Praxis is all they're doing. So yeah, it kind of evolved from there, and the team has just started growing ever since then. We've had a lot of really, really awesome people working on the team, and kind of, they come and go, of course. But yeah, I actually just started fairly recently, so I don't have too much insight as far as, where we were in the very beginning. I actually started myself as a participant going through the program before I ended up working here. So I got to see kind of the inside and the outside of the whole thing.
Okay, well, since you may not have the answer to this, and if you don't, don't feel embarrassed or whatever to tell me you don't really know. But excuse me. You didn't. All right. So Praxis didn't originally start off as an alternative to education. It was not like in competition with the education system. In some way, it has evolved into that particular field to where it's like, okay, I can either go to a college and put myself in debt, or I can join this program and I can start making money within the first year and be far ahead of my peers by the time they graduate college. Do you know how it evolved and how they, sometimes things kind of take on a life of their own and you just have to adjust with it. So how did they manage to shift their mentality from, well, we're not competition, to, okay, we have to find how to compete in this market?
So that's actually interesting, because when I say that's not why it was started, that is true. His initial idea wasn't, when I say that, his initial idea wasn't to start this company to compete with college. But we all knew from the very beginning, they all knew from the very beginning that this is going to be something that is very obviously competing with college, just because of the nature of the program itself. Mm-hmm. Additionally, with all of the people that we were bringing on that were like-minded, they all held that same belief of, I was always dreading college. I always knew that I wanted to do something completely different with that time. I didn't want to go and spend that money and invest that time into something I knew wasn't worth it. So from the beginning, everyone knew that was the case. What I mean when I say that is just Isaac Morehouse, when he started it, was more from the perspective of, I want to help this group of individuals that are looking for other opportunities, rather than I want to start something that puts college out of business, if that makes sense. So we were pretty aware of it from the very beginning, that this was going to be something that we have to battle with, and something that, is the other side of the higher education spectrum. And we've done fairly good at managing that. We definitely try not to bash college or anything like that, because there have been a number of participants that will go to college, graduate, and come do Praxis, or they'll go to college, drop out, come do Praxis, and then go back to college. I actually only think that's happened once. But regardless, we don't think college is this evil thing, but it definitely does need to be changed, and it's not effective the way it is right now. So we knew that was going to be a struggle that we had. It was just not the initial intent to be in this battle.
Right. Okay. So explain a little bit how it works, like in detail. I know that when students apply to Praxis, they have the opportunity to go to work for, from what I understand, almost all of your the businesses y'all are partnershiped with are actually newer startups, and they have an opportunity to go work and learn the skills on the job, as well as attend Praxis and get education. Is that pretty close?
Yeah, so they'll go through the education experience first within that first 6 months, and that's when, like I mentioned earlier, that's when you'll be going and doing the weekly discussions with your cohort, the group calls, and the guest speakers that'll be coming and doing skills workshops. We have writing challenges. The 30-day blogging challenge is pretty infamous in the Praxis sphere, and that is one of our modules. We have them build out, an online presence and develop their portfolio, have them complete and brainstorm projects for real companies in their areas during this time. Not as like an employee, but just as, I want to redesign your website for you, document the whole thing and put it on my personal website. So in the future, an employer can see, look, I literally have proof that I have done, what you need me to do. Here's the evidence, and here's me documenting how I learned to do it all. So that's kind of what the initial 6 months is focused on, is building your online presence, developing your hard skills, and getting yourself ready to put it all into practice when you go to your apprenticeship. And so after you complete the boot camp, we have them enter this placement phase, where we have placement advisors that have gotten to know them during the past 6 months, and what their skills are, what their weaknesses are, and what their interests are. They find businesses in our network that are the best opportunities for that intersection between their skills and interests. Mm-hmm. And they'll present them to the participant and say, here are a few that we think would be a good fit for you. And the participant, it's totally up to them to decide, I want to pursue this opportunity or that opportunity or all of them. And then we have them build value props. We have them build pitch decks, and, here's what I'm going to do in the first 30 days for your company to provide extra value. I might be interviewing for a sales role, but I'm also going to plan out, some Instagram posts for your social media. And I'm going to, like I said, redesign your website, or, whatever they can find that needs to be improved upon, to just kind of solidify, like, I am here to be valuable to you, not to just show up and do my job. And then they go into the apprenticeship, they stay there for 6 months, and they're still working on monthly projects to, use at their business partner and help improve where they're at to make sure that they land that permanent offer. And right now, I think our numbers are 96% of our participants are landing a permanent job offer from those startups after they graduate, at an average of like $50,000 for their first year salary. And these are 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite intense. It definitely is intense, and it does push our participants. But what we've seen is, all of them totally enjoy it. It's not intense in the aspect of, going to class, and it's like a lot of busy work, because they can like see the immediate return of what they're doing. They know that they're building this presence, and they know that they're creating all of this for other people and for themselves. And they can see the direct value in what they're doing. And I think that's the main difference.
So do y'all have physical campuses, or is all of this done online?
The initial 6 months, the boot camp is completely online. But the second 6 months is on location with your business partner. So we actually encourage our participants to relocate for that time, because that adds a whole new, valuable experience when you're leaving your hometown and moving somewhere completely different and adulting, for the first time on your own. We think that's a very valuable experience. So we encourage that heavily.
Okay. And what kind of businesses are y'all partnered with, in which you help place these students in the apprenticeship? Yeah,
so they're primarily tech startups. Most of the roles that you see in the network are operations, sales, marketing, and technical. We call those super skills. They're the skills that are going to be prevalent in any industry. So if you can learn to at least do these things proficiently, you don't have to make it your passion in your career. That if society collapses, one of the first few businesses that they start running again is going to need a marketer. It's going to need a salesperson. It's going to need a technical person, an operations person. So we definitely focus on at least being familiar and proficient with those skills. And then, like I said, they're primarily tech companies. So there's a lot of just, software and different cool. It's very hard to explain, because there's a very wide variety. For instance, we have a company called Remedy that is essentially Uber for doctors. It will just, you can hop on the app and you can order a doctor to come do a house visit like they used to. But we also have hospitality companies, and, so it's a pretty wide variety. But they are all tech startups, and they're all, we do screen them to make sure that they're successful and they're not going to fizzle out in 6 months kind of deal. So it's mainly tech startups.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. And and that's a really good thing, because you're dealing with a relatively unknown company, and that really pushes your skills, your abilities in marketing. And because it's actually like measurable on a company that's relatively unknown. You can actually
totally
measure the success rates of the marketing. And that's one thing I always say, and this is my ego getting the best of me, but I'm one of the most talented people that does not know how to market their own skills. So marketing would have done me a lot of good, growing up and learning how to market and sell and these things that I never really learned how to do.
Totally. And what you said makes, we actually talk about that a lot. These companies are very, very small. Some of them are teams of 9-10 people. So that means whatever decision you make while you're working there has a direct impact on the company, whether that's good or bad. So you get to see your decisions play out pretty much immediately. And I think that alone is super valuable, to be able to see that and have that impact, because the quickest way to learn is to fail and to grow from that and learn what you did wrong and how to approach that different. And kind of piggybacking on, I guess this is going back to the companies that we work with and the roles that we offer. But when we talk about all this marketing, sales, operations, and technical and tech startups and all of this, We've had participants that'll go through that experience, graduate, and start their own art business, or they'll go and do some fashion design or game design, or they'll start writing professionally. You don't have to be in these roles that a lot of people find uninteresting. They're super valuable, but you don't have to stay in them forever. But they are going to help you to, take what your passion truly is and turn it into a career. So that's why we focus on that during the program. It truly can be applied to almost everything.
Well, this isn't, I wouldn't think it's necessarily the most original thing you've ever heard in your life, but as these students are seeing their successes, they're able to measure their success because they kind of know where these startups are when they get there. It's easily measurable, unlike going to a corporation like Coca-Cola or something like that. You wouldn't be able to measure your influence on that corporation. But if you go to a startup, you're able to see what your influence means to that startup. And so in a way, Praxis is almost marketing self-respect and a type of self-confidence that you may not receive in a larger corporation, because you actually see the effects of your work right there in front of your face immediately.
Absolutely. And it's also harder to, find areas to create extra value in a big corporate setting, because a lot of times they have, really strong policies set in place and, these workflows that have already been polished and polished and polished. So doing something extra, it's totally doable, but it comes with a lot more red tape that is unnecessary. Whereas if you go to a startup and you're doing that, you don't have to deal with red tape. You just get to experiment with new ideas, and being able to play around with that has a completely different feel.
Yeah, one of the negative things you say that, it reminds me, one of the negative things I ran into as I've worked in my life, and I told you I'm almost 40, and I've been working full time since I was 17 years old. And one of the negative things I've run into, the things that really kind of kills that enthusiasm with a company, is you'll come up with an idea and you'll be like, look, man, I understand what you're trying to accomplish, but I think maybe I have a better way to accomplish it. And they look at it, and you're using your creativity, your critical thinking, and this, that, and the other. And they look at it and they say, well, we've been doing it this way since 1969, which is, just a way of saying, yeah, this is the way we do it. So you just keep your ideas to yourself. And, being with a startup, they're going to be a lot more flexible. Number one, you're going to be working with younger people more than likely, and they're going to be more creative and have more critical thinking skills. They're not going to be so set in their ways. They're going to be willing to be more flexible because they're trying to get a foothold to be able to compete within the market.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things too, where, we have all of these startups that we're working for. The majority of them are really young people. When we have people being placed and they're 18, 19, 20 years old, they feel like they belong there more so than, if they go and work at a call center or at a corporate office where people there are, double, triple their age, which isn't a problem. And you can learn a lot from those people, but it just comes with a greater sense of community and belonging as well for the participants that we're placing, specifically because they feel like they're working on these great projects with their peers.
So when you get into looking for candidates to enter your program, what are the qualifications y'all are looking for?
One of my favorite things about Praxis is that we don't have any hard requirements at all. We don't have age requirements. We don't look at your GPA. We don't look at what classes you took in high school. None of that. We look for people who at least have had some work experience. So, you know what that feels like to be working under someone and getting paid for that and have that relationship. But other than that, what we look for is, what we call forward tilt and just motivation and drive in general. Mm-hmm. So just the eagerness to better yourself always and create things in general. We just look for that drive and the mindset fit and the culture fit. But other than that, there's no other requirements to apply and join Praxis.
So how would one apply if they're interested in getting the information about applying to Praxis? How would they go about that?
So they can go to apply.discoverpraxis.com, and that will prompt you a field to put in your information, your name, your email, and then you start the application process. And I will be the first point of contact for anyone that's in that process. We'll send out reminder texts and emails throughout. And, if you have any questions, then I'm always the one that you're talking to. But the actual application itself is set up to reflect the structure of the boot camp. So they'll encounter 5 tasks across 5 days, and they can complete them 1 task a day, or they can complete them all in one go. We love seeing that drive and that eagerness, like I said, and that is one way that we allow them to demonstrate that. And these tasks are not boring, like really, just write out your entire resume and, write out all this stuff that is just statistics. It's genuinely getting to know the applicant and what they like, how they think, and what their personality and character are like. We have questions like, who is your favorite thinker and why? What is one belief that you have that nobody else believes? Those are the kinds of questions that we ask in the application, and our participants love it. And we love it too, because we get to see who we're going to be working with and how they're going to fit in. And I think that is more effective than doing the whole give me the classes you took and your grades and all of this, and just the basic surface level information that you could have Googled.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a good thing, because you actually you're digging into their psyche and who the person actually is, and how they look at life and how they look at the future and what they want for themselves, and whether or not they are the type of person to complete a course of this nature, because a lot of it is self-driven, and it's based upon that individual's willingness to participate. So when they encounter this application process and they go through this, when do they experience a period to where they could apply for financial aid or something of that nature, scholarship of sorts, or is this all they fund themselves and pay monthly installments? How do they take care of the financial aspect of going through Praxis? Yeah,
so we have no problem taking GI bills and FAFSA and all that stuff. We would love to. However, we just don't qualify because we are not an accredited institution. So, as far as financial aid and stuff like that, that is usually not doable because of that reason. If that changes, we are, like I said, very receptive to accepting that. So if those parameters change, then we'll be on that. We have run scholarships in the past. We're not running any right now, but we have run them in the past, up to full ride scholarships. Some are just $2,000. It varies. But one thing that is constant is the payment plans. We don't expect the $12,000 tuition to be paid up front. We know that that's unrealistic, especially for people that are looking to create their futures and haven't already established that. So, if a participant gets accepted, they will have an opportunity to hop on a call and discuss these payment plans in detail with my colleague and find out what best suits their financial needs, what we can do to ease the strain, what is possible there. They'll have a few days to think on it, and then after they think about it and decide on what plan they want to go forward with, then they'll sign and move forward. Typically, the plans, if it really does vary because it's a case by case basis, but I can give kind of an overgeneralized view. They usually end up around $500 a month if you want to spread it out as much as possible. That, like I said, give or take some, depending on which plan you end up settling on and how you guys alter it to make sure that it fits your needs. But that's typically what it usually ends up being. Some people have financial support from their family or their parents or whatever, and then that can change things as well. But if it's totally the participant funding it, then usually that's where the payment plans end up falling.
Okay. And when you say $12,000 tuition, is that per year? $12,000 a year?
So our only program is a year long. So technically, yes. However, they'll only be in the program for 1 year. So it's $12,000 for the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Okay. I know.
Yeah.
I think I'd heard Tom Woods talk about the job placement program contracts you out for like 3 years or 4 years or something like that. So I wasn't real sure how that worked. Are there contracts involved in that?
So as like the participant will sign a contract basically agreeing to what is expected of them during the program. However, that contract ends after the year. When they graduate from the apprenticeship, they are totally in their business partner's hands. If they want to hire the participant, whatever the salary is, that is completely up to that company.
Wow.
After they graduate the program, it's totally it's out of our jurisdiction.
Okay. And when you do you encounter parents that say, "Oh, this sounds like a good deal, but it hasn't been proven yet, and I'm not real sure because I know what my kid's going to get out of going to college, but I'm not real sure what my child's going to experience here and if it's going to work for my kid and this, that, and the other." And how do you handle those encounters?
Yeah, so we do get a lot of that. We get a lot of specifically, what do I get out of this? Because we don't offer a degree. We don't offer a certification like college does. There's no physical thing that you walk away with when you graduate Praxis. However, I would argue that what you do walk away with is ultimately more valuable than that, because it might not be something that you can physically hold. However, you're walking away with these skills that you've developed, this experience that you can now put on your resume where you have worked, doing sales. You can say, when I joined my business partner, this company that I've worked for, we had like 200 clients, and after I left, we had over 3,000. That is something that's pretty intense, and that is something that you wouldn't have been able to say with college. Additionally, when you graduate, you will have a network of other Praxians and the alumni and our advisors and our staff that are permanently accessible to you. When you graduate, you're put into a Facebook workplace group that is exclusively Praxis alum. And people are on there all the time posting job opportunities, posting projects that they're working on, posting that they're looking for a portfolio project. So if anyone needs a logo designed, I'll design your logo for free because I need it for my portfolio. A bunch of stuff like that, as well as, permanent access to our curriculum. So you can always go back and revise, how do I build a value prop again? You can schedule a call with an advisor and say, hey, it's been a few years since I graduated, but I'm looking to land this opportunity. Can you help me craft a value prop for this? Does this look good? Can you give me some feedback? All of that is totally permanently available. And our extra modules as well that weren't in the original program, you can access those at any point. So it's you don't walk away with a degree or a certification, but you walk away with a network. you walk away with resources, and you walk away with what you've already built during your time in the program. And all of those things are totally applicable to the real world, whereas a piece of paper you get to frame and hang up on your wall.
Well, in that answer, I heard my first red flag of the entire interview, and I'm going to ask you this straight up because I'm worried about our children's future. So when you say Praxian, this isn't some kind of cultish Illuminati skull and bones type organization, is it?
No. That's what we call, because yeah, Praxis participant is a little bit of a mouthful sometimes. So yeah, that's just slang that we came up with.
Okay, so you don't have to be a flat
totally casual
to apply or anything like that.
No. Yeah, totally casual.
All right. Well, we're running up on an hour, brother. What I want to do is I want to give you, I think this is like a really good opportunity here towards the end. I want to hear some of your most remarkable success stories. And what I mean by that is one of the things during this interview I've been thinking of is how could this program apply to inner city youth and the more impoverished areas in the United States? And so what are some really just impressive success stories that you're familiar with from the Praxis model?
Yeah, so I think I'll address your second point first and then go into some success stories that kind of demonstrate my answer. And that is for people that are struggling, I would say that Praxis teaches them the ability to take life by the reins and really go after what they want. Like I said, going through the program myself, I think that was one of the biggest revolutions I had in my head was like, I knew like, quote, you could do anything, but I mean, not really, like that's just a saying, right. But like, you can, if you have this career goal, you can totally make that happen for yourself. If you just take the right approach and you maintain that drive. Just a lot of people don't have the guts to actually do that. So I would say that people encountering this kind of philosophy are going to feel a bit more empowered to take things into their own hands and do what they can with what they have, to gain a little bit more. And then when they have a little bit more, they do what they can with what they have to gain a little bit more than that, and keep growing and stay in this constant state of learning and growing, and jumping on opportunities when they see them. And kind of seeing the world from this, how can I leverage my experiences to better myself and put myself in a better position than I am right now. So to put that in perspective, one of the first Praxis participants that we had, Mitchell Broderick, all of this information is totally public domain. He's very open about all of this. I'm going to talk about his salary and stuff, but he's posted all of that on his own first. He came from like a background exactly like you said. He didn't have much. He was working at IHOP and he was living in his car. And he started Praxis and he went through the program. He did his apprenticeship, got the full-time offer, kept doing his thing. And within a couple years, like it was literally 2 years, he ended up like as a sales executive and he's making 6 digits. So it's a complete turnaround. Another participant that we had, Diana Zitting, her story is everywhere as well in our Praxis network. She actually dropped out of high school, got her GED and came to Praxis. And by the time she was 20, she owned her own house. And she's still working for, she's still working for startups in high level positions. I think she's an account executive right now at Platform Marketing. And she's doing extremely well as well. So we've seen these stories of people coming in and they don't have much, they don't really have a direction, and they feel kind of lost. And they go through the program and they know like, this is what I'm motivated by. I want to go after this and I want to make my life better. So, and the stories can go on and on. I think that every participant's experience is a little bit different. Like I said earlier, we've had people graduate and go on and do, start their own art businesses and really follow their passion, even though they were doing marketing or sales or customer success or something that they didn't really want to do for the rest of their lives. But the experiences from working at a startup in those positions kind of showed them how they can use those skills to craft the future that they want. So I would recommend, if anyone that's listening is interested in seeing these success stories in bulk, you can look up online Praxis participant reviews, and there are a lot of them. A lot of our participants, because they've honed down their video making skills or their blog writing skills, have taken that opportunity to use those and create reviews and write about their experiences firsthand. And they'll be able to provide more detail and what it was like from their perspective. But there are a lot of them. So I would encourage, if that's something you're interested in, checking that out, because like I said, you'll see a lot of variety as far as the way that it's affected people.
Well, damn, Drake, you're a hell of a polished interview, man. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me and having me on here.
How can people reach you? Where can they find all the information about Praxis? It's discoverpraxis.com. Is that it?
Yep. Discoverpraxis.com. And if you guys want to send me an email, you are more than welcome. My email is literally just drake@discoverpraxis.com. So it's pretty easy to remember. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you guys have. You can schedule a call with me on the website as well. That's just discoverpraxis.com/schedule. So we can talk, vocally, if that's more of your deal. Yeah, I'm open to anyone reaching out at any point. So feel free to post that information when you post this episode as well.
Okay. Yeah, I absolutely will. I'll put all that in the show notes. I'll make sure there's links. I remember whenever I had interviewed Rebecca and I had tried to link to Praxis, I had just put praxis.com. And so it was taking them somewhere completely different. And it was some kind of like weird conspiracy theory or some, I don't know. I don't know what was happening over there. I was like, oh crap, this isn't right.
Yeah, there's some teacher tests that people get mistaken for, like they mistake the two all the time. So yeah, totally understandable.
All right. Give me 1 second. Let me shut this down, man. And I wanted to talk to you for 1 minute afterwards.
Perfect. Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, that was Stranger Encounters with Drake Powell. I am Tommy Salmons. Late.